Alright, so welcome to Nutrition and Wellness, and we are going to start off Chapter 1, looking at food that affects life. Now, in this chapter, we are going to hit these objectives, and the first objective is you should be able to explain how the search for food led to the development of civilization. Use the steps in a decision-making process to make food choices. Be able to outline physical, social, and psychological influences on food choices. And lastly, be able to describe factors that affect the food supply. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the history of food. There's a lot of history when it talks about food, and we're not going to go that deep into it because we just really want to get some main points out. But we want to look at how food is today and how it was back 50, 100 years ago. So early people formed tribes and they hunted together in order to bring down that big woolly mammoth so that the cavemen can eat. Eventually, we start getting into the hunters and gatherers, and we start getting a little bit more involved. We start herding animals, and we start farming, and your food supply becomes more dependable. And that means that if you go out and you put corn in the field, you're going to expect corn to grow out of the ground. Whereas if you were early people and you were hunting, like, oh, today, well, there's a deer running around, we're having deer for dinner. Or, hey, look, there's a big buffalo running around, we're having buffalo for dinner. It was not very dependable. There were times when there were droughts and there weren't any animals and tribes and people starved to death. So throughout history, we've learned to become more dependable in terms of food. And as food becomes more available, people are able to dedicate more time to doing other activities. So your whole day wasn't spent hunting. You might go out, go to the grocery store, pick up some food for dinner to make later on, and then you can still go to work and do all your other stuff. So after we have that, we start trading. This is when we start to develop civilizations. Because let's say Farmer Brown, he was a great baker. He got his wheat, made his bread, but he made a lot of bread, and all his family ate was bread, and they had a lot of leftover bread. But their family wanted some vegetables as well. So Farmer Brown went over to Farmer Ted, who lives down the street, and Ted was a farmer, and he did vegetables. He had lettuce, he had tomatoes, he had corn and broccoli. So Farmer Brown said, hey, Farmer Ted, I will give you this huge bundle of bread if you give me some of your extra vegetables. And so that's how we began trading. Eventually, we decided, hey, my food doesn't taste very good. I need to add some spices to it. Or, hey, you know what? I went across the sea, and they have this great thing called a potato, and it tastes so good, but here, we don't have potatoes. We want to get some stuff from there, bring it back, and make our own potatoes, or grow our own potatoes. So people started to search for foods in distant places. Explorers began to introduce their food to the new lands, and they brought home food from the new lands to their hometown. So foods that were once native to one place are now found all over the place. So we're going to think about this. What foods do you eat today that originated from other countries? And don't say nothing, because America really didn't have its own cuisine. It got pizzas from Italy. It's got pastas from Italy and China. It got tacos from Mexico. So the foods that we eat, even on our school menu, is not originated from right here. So what foods do you eat on a daily basis or on a weekly basis that originate from other countries?
Dinner's ready! Come and get it!
Have you noticed something?
No.
Our food has been changing.
What do you mean?
Food has changed a lot over the last 50 years.
Well, it's fast and easy, and we've got lots of it.
You call this food?
Of course it's food. Just read the labels. Okay, well, here. Have a nice, fresh tomato.
Wow, it's huge and so red.
Mm-hmm. Looks perfect.
But like most of our food, it's not nearly as good for us as it was 50 years ago. There's more nutrition in cardboard with ketchup. Is this really still a tomato? Where does food come from anyway?
Well, that's easy. It comes from here. Look at all this stuff.
Gee, I thought food came from somewhere else. Like here. Our food comes from a huge diversity of plants and animals with genetic roots from all over the planet.
Sure, and we can have it all right here. The choice is mind-boggling.
Not so fast. 25% of what's on grocery store shelves is processed versions of just one crop. It used to come in all kinds of varieties. Our potatoes, a few pale starchy kinds designed to feed French fry machines. In the Andes, farmers still have hundreds of varieties, but maybe not for long.
So what's happened to our food?
Well, in the beginning, people started out growing food for their families and neighbors and took the extra to market. But the road to market started getting longer, and markets got a lot bigger. And then the world's food system started changing food into something else.
What is food?
Well, you need seeds, soil, the right amount of sunshine and rain, and farmers to know and appreciate the complexity of how all these things work together. Small-scale farmers all over the world know a lot about growing food. They have had about 10,000 years of experience. They start out with these guys.
Seeds?
Yep. Complicated little packages of potential for things like taste, size, vitamins and minerals, and armed with all kinds of different ways to handle too much sun, or rain, or pests, or diseases. That diversity is the key to a healthy food system.
But if we could redesign tractors, we could probably redesign seeds and make them grow food bigger and faster, too.
Or grow food in one convenient, package-ready shape and size.
We can do that?
Oh, sure. The MH1 tomato was even designed with skin tougher than car bumpers.
And the nutrition content?
Oh, who's going to notice? And anyway, these new seeds came with their own designer fertilizers and pesticides.
Gee, this can't come cheap. Who do they write out the IOU to?
Oh, some very big seed companies, who also just happen to be some very big pesticide companies.
Wow, these newcomers meant business.
So, a lot of old ideas about seeds and soils and variety and diversity and farmers and food weren't really needed anymore.
So just how does this new food get to our dinner table now?
Through a lot of gates.
Well, just how far does the average dinner have to travel?
Oh, thousands of kilometers, give or take a few. And along the way, things have had to get very efficient. Meanwhile, back on the farm, things aren't going so well.
What's wrong?
The soils are sick and our water is polluted. Too much chemical fertilizer and pesticides.
What are all these cornfields doing?
Growing fuel for cars. And we're losing the diversity of the world's food supply. About 75% in the last 100 years.
What? No.
Yes, 90% of the wheat varieties grown in China a century ago are now extinct. In India, there were once 30,000 rice varieties, but now only a dozen rice varieties cover India's major rice growing area.
Really?
90% of American fruit and vegetable varieties have disappeared. We once had over 7,000 named varieties of apples in North America. Today, 96% of them are extinct.
But we still have lots of food in the world.
Oh yeah, sure. But while 1 in 6 people are getting sick from eating too much, another 1 in 6 people in the world don't have enough to eat. And climate change is threatening our food supply.
So where have all the farmers gone? What can we do?
Well, here's a start. Think about where our food comes from and how it's produced. Buy local, organic, and fair trade whenever you can. Support small-scale farmers who grow healthy food around the world. Make your voice heard by joining the worldwide movement to change our food system. Together, we can rebuild a healthy food system for everyone.
It's never fun having to make a tough decision. It can be hard when we're afraid of making the wrong choice, or if we want both options. But if we don't make a decision, we've decided not to choose, which really means we've chosen nothing. And no one wants that. So, when we are given a choice, it's important that we actually make a decision, since both options are good. But how do we decide what to choose? Tough decisions happen to everyone. But by practicing decision-making with smaller decisions, it's not so tough when big decisions come along. One of the easiest ways to decide which choice is better for you is to list what you like and what you don't like about each option. When you come up with the good things, called pros, and bad things, cons, you can pick the option with more pros or the one with fewer cons. Though all of your decisions may not be perfect, the more you practice, the easier the decision-making will get.
Alright, so we're going to look at the decision-making process. We are going to discuss the steps that you need to go through when making a decision. The decision could be a personal one, such as buying something or making a purchase, or it can be deciding on a career and developing a 4-year plan of study for high school and beyond. So, we're going to break this down into steps. The first step, identify the decision that needs to be made. Your awareness that a decision must be made may be triggered by a number of things. For example, in middle school, you're beginning to explore your interests and careers. Even though you will narrow down your career option by only looking at those that match your interests, you will still need to make a decision on what career or career cluster that best matches your needs. Number 2, gather information and resources. Most decisions require collecting information that will let you know what your options are, and that will help make the best decision. You're going to need to know what information is needed. You need to know the best sources of information and where to get it. You can resource information in books, on the internet, you can ask people, or you can find other resources. Some information you will need to find that through a process of self-analysis. So for instance, going back to the middle school and the career, you can find all the books, you can take all the quizzes, and it can tell you, oh, you're going to be great at garbage collecting. But you know in your heart of hearts that you don't want to be a garbage collector. So through self-analysis, you think, okay, well, I'm not going to follow that decision-making process. I'm going to find something that's a little bit more personal to me. So don't let all your resources overwhelm you and point you to a direction that does not benefit you at all. Number 3, list your options. As you're gathering your information, you probably want to start identifying 2 or more possible options. Number 3, you're going to weigh and you compare your options. Analyze each options. This is where you would draw that pro and con list. What would happen with each? You must evaluate whether the problem identified in the beginning of the process will be helped or solved through each of these options. Eventually, you should be able to place the options in priority order based on your own value system. Number 5, make the decision. At this step, you will choose among those options that you've identified. Once you weigh all the evidence, you are ready to select the option which seems to best suit you. You may even choose a combination of options, maybe a little bit of this and maybe a little bit of that. Number 6, make a plan to reach your goals. You are now ready to make a plan of action to reach your goal or decision. What are the steps that you're going to need to take in order to reach that goal? Using that middle school career option again. So after you've gotten your resources gathered, you're like, okay, well, this tells me I need to be a garbage collector, but I want to be an actor. I'm going to go with acting because that's my hearts. So, what are some of those you made that decision, what are some of the plans that you'll need to do in order to make that goal? You're going to need to take acting classes. You're going to need to take, maybe go to summer camp for theater. Maybe be in a couple plays. What are the steps that you need to take in order to fill your goal? Evaluate the decision. After you've made your decision, after you've looked at all your resources, after you've set your plan in motion, you're going to look back and evaluate your decision. Review your decision and the consequences. In this step, you experience the results of your decisions and evaluate whether or not it was solved or helped solve the problem identified in step 1. If yes, you may stay with the decision that you made. If no, you may repeat certain steps of the process in order to make a new decision. You may not always make the right decision, or you just may not get the results that you want. It's very important that if you make the wrong decision or a bad decision, that you learn from your mistakes. So we're going to go back to the actor/garbage collector. After a while, this individual realizes they don't make very much money as an actor. And the garbage collecting, maybe their father was a garbage collector, maybe their grandfather was a garbage collector, maybe their father owns the collection agency. And they all evaluate their decision. Well, if I had made that other choice, I could have a job, I could be well off, I could have stability. By choosing to be an actor, I've chosen a world of instability. Is this a good decision? You might go back and say, hey, maybe being a garbage collector was the right decision for me. Maybe being an actor, you're going to stick it through and you become that great actor, and it works out for you. But it's all about evaluating your decision. So when you come to class tomorrow, you're going to come with a decision that you have to make. It could be a real decision. It could be a decision of what are you going to have for dinner tonight. It could be the decision of where you're going to go to college. But I want you to come with something that you want to make a decision. We're going to go through these 7 steps, and we're going, well, 6 of them, you can't really evaluate yet, but these 6 steps, and try to come up with a decision. Alright, so the last thing for tonight's homework is you guys are going to practice making a decision. Now, I want you to think of a specific issue about buying, preparing, or ordering food. Complete the following exercise to help you work through these steps of the decision-making process, and you're going to write your answers in the space provided. You need to bring this in tomorrow, filled out, so that I know that you've gone through this process before. Then tomorrow, when you bring your new decision that you need to make, it does not have to be revolving around food. It could be about college. It could be about whatever. You can at least look back and say, okay, this is an example of what are alternatives. This is an example of, this, and this. So come to class with this filled out. Have A and B filled out, these activities, because these 2 activities are the key to Wednesday's lab. Meaning, if you do not have activities A and activity B done by class on Tuesday, you will sit out on lab on Wednesday. You'll actually spend Wednesday doing this project. So, good night. Hope you get your homework done, and I will see you tomorrow.